There is always a story. There is always a story. David Willis.
Have you ever said the wrong thing? And the moment you said it, you knew you had said the wrong thing. It was the spring of 1997. I was a staff writer for the Southeastern Oklahoma State University newspaper. Now, up until this point, I'd only written editorial articles because, let's face it, I was 18 and really opinionated.
Yeah.
But my faculty advisor had given me my first real story. She called me into her office and told me that there would be a rescue worker at our local Baptist Student Union that Wednesday night. She wanted me to go cover the story and was confident that I could do it. So, I did what any rational 18-year-old would do. I took a date. A date who was a senior in high school. So, by the time we got sat down and ready for the man to talk, I was paying more attention to her, and by the time he really got into his speech, yeah, it was time for her curfew and we had to leave. So the next day I walk into my professor's office and she says, "So, did you get my story?" And I said, "I went. I listened, but I really didn't think there was much of a story." Yeah, I had said the wrong thing. "Are you out of your mind?" she said. "He was a rescue worker at the Oklahoma City bombing. What do you mean there is no story? There is always a story." "This is what you're going to do," she said. "You're going to get this man on the phone. You're going to ask him every question that comes into your head. You are going to get my story. Get out of my office." Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, I learned something very important that day. There's always a story. And don't make your professor mad. But if there's always a story, what is a story? Well, a story is a tale about a character. And this character has to want something. It can't be something easy to get, or it's not a very interesting story. It has to be something that's hard to get. And they have to go through trial and tribulation and hard times. And by the time they almost get it, they almost don't. And at the end, they finally achieve whatever it is they're after. Think about all of your favorite movies or books over time, and you'll see that the main characters of those stories went through a similar pattern. Well, I called the man on the phone as I was instructed, and this was his story. He was a youth pastor at the Oklahoma City area. When the bombing happened, he said he was enjoying time with his youth group. He really enjoyed his life. But when the news broke, he wanted to help like every other person in Oklahoma did. He said he got to the bombing site, and he wasn't prepared for what he saw. Where the Murrah building had stood was only a portion of a building, and towers of rubble. He said he was there to help, but he was carrying out bodies and parts of bodies. The team there, they banded together. They had a mission, they had a purpose, and he said he remembered the day that they were told that it was an American that had caused all of the atrocity. He said their spirits were broken, that one of our own could do this. It affected him so badly that he found himself not long after on a dark highway. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel and his speedometer read 118 miles an hour, and the only thought he had in his mind is, this has to end, the pain is too much. And though he had family and friends, he was about to do the unspeakable. And the bridge embankment was coming up, and he tried to pull the wheel towards the bridge embankment, and the wheel pulled back. And he pulled it again, and the wheel pulled back, and he thought, I know what this is. And he soon called a friend of his and said, stop praying for me. And she said, no, I won't stop praying for you. You're too important. He said it was at that point he knew he needed to get help. So he checked himself into a rehabilitation center. He left the youth ministry for a time. And the end of that story is he was once again a youth pastor in the Oklahoma City area. And he was helping his teenagers. And he was helping other people with pain cope with the use of his own. own story. But see, this got me thinking about something. What kind of story was I telling? Here was a man who was an awesome character, who wanted something noble and went through enormous hardship to get it. I was an 18-year-old who cared more about myself than I did about doing a good job, who was more interested in hanging out with a girlfriend who I actually broke up with a couple of months later than I was in paying attention to something that was so important, not only to the people of our state, but also to me individually, because it could have taught me something important and good. I wasn't telling a very good story. Because what do good stories really do? They stick with us. They educate us. They inform us. I went to write the words of this presentation and realized 19 years have passed since I wrote those words. I opened my scrapbook up, and there were all the words of this article I'd written, and I hadn't forgotten a single one. The story stuck with me so well. So I went and I tried to look this man up online. Amazingly enough, I found him, even though I haven't been able to contact him. And there he was, and he told a good story then, and I found evidence that he told another good story a few years after, and another good story a few years after, and he keeps telling really good stories, and it inspires me. Because I know if I tell story after story after story after story, I haven't just told a good story, I've left a legacy for my family with all the good that I've done. So my friends, I ask you, what story are you telling with your life? If my professor was right, there's always a story. And just like me, you hold the pen in your hand to write your own. If there's always a story, my friends, I beg you, tell yours well.